Hey guys, we just wrapped up that epic interview with Dan Lynch from Lynch Custom Homes, and I wanted to run through really fast a handful of my top takeaways. I got a lot out of this interview. Hopefully you did as well. Number one, skill and competency always comes before great success. One of the things that Dan talked about at length is he spent 7 years in the production building business, which gave him a lot of skill sets. He developed and honed his skill sets for project management and construction knowledge that gave him the foundation to launch his company. I feel like in the modern era, everyone wants instant gratification, but in the realm of success, that's not usually how it works. You got to pay your dues first. That's the number one takeaway. Number two, fail fast. Both problems and solutions compound. So with Dan's experience, when they were building like 500 to 900 homes a year, they were able to make a lot of mistakes very, very rapidly and then learn from those mistakes quickly. In the construction business, it's important. There's a lot of variables that go into building a home, tons of small components, and he was able to get rapid fire track record and experience over that 7-year period doing that large of a volume, which then enabled him to fine-tune his approach to be a very specific luxury builder to avoid those mistakes and have experience in that realm. Very, very valuable. Number three, prioritize operational excellence. Dan and his team were big on project management. In the world of construction, if you work with luxury clients, delays and challenges in the schedule are some of the biggest problems you run into. And so having the ability to prioritize operational excellence in all facets, which is getting the right people in place to do their individual tasks and roles, organizing them with an excellent production schedule, and then keeping an eye on quality control. Those are the three main factors that they do a great job of. And again, this builds off of his experience that he's had in the production building world. Opportunities are often disguised as setbacks. So in 2008, Dan had thought he would spend his entire career with that home builder that he was building 900 homes a year with, was at a very high level in the business, managing a lot of projects. Market collapsed. They had to unwind the company, sell off all the assets. He's one of the last guys there. That setback turned into probably one of the greatest opportunities of his life, because he went on to then obviously build his own niche luxury building business, which he has flourished with and has built over $100 million with residential homes in the past handful of years. Next takeaway, start small, move fast. When Dan first started his business, he started on small projects. Start small, miss small, mistakes are small, and then he moved very, very quickly to build track record with investors. So he was doing smaller, shorter term flips in and out in 4 to 6 months, get them their capital back with a return. That built credibility and track record with his investors and private partners, which enabled him to move on to larger projects over time and then raise larger and larger amounts of capital. But you got to start small before you can really build true trust with investors. Staying nimble. A lot of entrepreneurs and business owners want to scale to the largest size that they can. Dan's been very intentional. I think it's unique because he has a very specific approach to his business. They have a certain number of homes that they build a year. That percentage is split between custom home builds and spec builds. He's got his internal core team, which have equity and help manage the business. Everyone else are subcontractors. And he's not looking to scale or change the size of it. It's very specific. It's profitable. It enables him to pursue all of his own interests. And for long-term wealth creation, he's building longer-term, larger vision projects as opposed to changing the scale of his business, because the stress that's involved with that and the challenge is not something that he really wants to do. It's profitable the size that it is. It's enjoyable. And so he's decided to stay nimble and keep it a very specific size. And that's unique in the world of entrepreneurs and business owners. When you get started in business, it's key to have the right people around you that have different skill sets than you do. Dan was lucky enough to be able to fill those gaps with his support system. So he had people he trusted around him, his project manager, Dustin, Angel, his wife, who was a certified CPA, to diversify responsibilities, project management, and the finance end, which enabled him to focus on what he was best at, which was really managing, organizing people, and putting them in the right place. that goes a long way. When you're starting a business, you can get a lot further with a team than you can individually if you have the right diversification of skill sets. Work a project from the back to the front. I mean, you always got to start with the end in mind. So in the real estate game, everyone wants to get into this business and flip homes or sell homes. They think the market's going to always go up. You always need to start with the exit and know exactly what you can sell that asset for in 30 days or less, and what the buyer type wants in the asset, what's necessary to be in it, price per square foot, know the back end, and then you work your numbers backwards from that to what your acquisition cost and build or renovation costs need to be. So in this game, it's important to know the numbers and start with the end in mind first. Diversify initially and then transition into a niche. So one of the things that Dan and I talked about is initially he started out flipping homes all over in different markets. And that consumed a lot of time because he had to gain knowledge on each of those markets. But in the process, they figured out what they liked doing as a team and as a business. And were able to shift from a diversification of different markets into one hyper-focused niche. In the future of the real estate business is changing rapidly. And the people that are succeeding at a very, very high level know their market better than anybody else, and they're extremely focused and they dominate a niche. And so he's done both of those things, and they're two key lessons that you can take away if you're starting a business from scratch. You might want to start out with a larger scattered approach, and then as you refine what you're great at, what your team's great at, what you love doing, you want to narrow that down into a niche and then hyper-focus on that and then crush it. Spec versus client builds. I think a lot of builders that get into the space would believe it's the dream just to build homes on spec and sell them and not have to deal with clients. But I think that Dan talked pretty competently about the balance between the two and why he tries to keep his business at a 50-50 ratio. There's always ebbs and flows to every market. And when you have the skill sets and the ability to manage high-profile clients well, do a good job for them, not only do you get tons of referral business and then you can pick and choose who you work with, but it gives you a stability to navigate any sort of market conditions that come. Whereas on the spec building side, we've had financial collapses in the past. Real estate cycles usually always go through ebb and flows. This has been one of the longest bull runs we've seen. And so at some point in time, it's going to have a correction or come to an end, and he wants to make sure his business is set up to sustain and survive that. So it's a very good strategic approach. The final, and I thought most clear, concise, and simple point that Dan brought to the table was be honest, period. His entire business and his team have the similar values, although they've never had to engineer or design or write those value systems out for their business. It's just known, it's unspoken. They're very clear and they're honest and transparent with clients. They try to do the right thing all the time, and they always follow through. So you do that in any sort of business, you're going to be successful, especially if you can be transparent and sincere in the process. These are my top takeaways from the interview with Dan Lynch. What were your guys's? Please leave comments. Let us know below. Again, my name is James Danley. This is the Bulldogs Podcast, and we will look forward to seeing you guys in the next one.